Hello, everybody. You're reading with Jimmy, and this is Jimmy. We're reading the Meditations of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antonius. This is Meditation 6. We read 5. This is number 6 of 12. We're halfway home after we're done with this one. Translated by George Long. Ready? Meditation 6, number 1. The substance of the universe is obedient and compliant, and the reason which governs it has in itself no cause for doing evil, for it has no malice, nor does it do evil to anything, nor is anything harmed by it. All things are made and perfected according to this reason. Remember the importance, ladies and gentlemen, of pronouns. Pronouns. Let's write that down. Pronouns. Now remember, Marcus Aurelius wrote this in Greek, so we have to be careful and read carefully in order to get the full meaning and appreciation. One more time on number 1. The substance of the universe, let me just get this here, is obedient and compliant. And the reason which governs it, what's it here, is the substance of the universe. The reason has in itself, no cause for doing evil. For it, reason, has no malice, nor does it do evil, nor does reason do evil to anything, nor is anything harmed by it, by reason. But all things are made and perfected according to this reason. Sounds like he's playing with words, which he is, but you want to think about this carefully as you think about it in relationship to what you're doing. So remember, meditations is like a self-examination. He's going to confession with himself. He's examining himself. He's talking to himself. He's talking to others. He's talking to people around him, imaginary people, not necessarily ever. And he's writing down his thoughts. He's writing a journal, something you should all do. Number 2. Let it make no difference to thee whether thou art cold or warm, if thou art doing thy duty, and whether thou art drowsy or satisfied with sleep, and whether ill spoken of or praised, and whether dying or doing something else, for it is one of the acts of life, this act by which we die. It is sufficient then in this act also to do well what we have in mind. In other words, be satisfied, right, with whatever you're doing. Satisfaction. That's what this is about. Satisfaction. Sorry? Good. Number 3, look within. Let neither the peculiar quality of anything nor its value escape thee. Jimmy put a little arrow there. That's very important. Look within yourself and let neither the peculiar quality or anything, nor its value of anything, nor its value escape thee. That goes true with lack of value. Number 4, all existing things soon change, and they will either be reduced to vapor, if indeed all substance is one, or they will be dispersed. This thing, all things change, is a common theme in the Meditations. Heraclitus said that. Everything is like a river flowing, and you can't put your foot in the same place in the river. And this is a marvelous thought. All existing things soon change. So if you're troubled, if something's happening, your car doesn't work, whatever, they will either be reduced to vapor, if indeed all substance is one, if everything is the same, or they will be dispersed. No big deal. Well, Jimmy, I don't believe what the hell you're saying here. Well, you don't have to. What we want to do is understand what Marcus Aurelius is saying to himself as he thinks about and contemplates life around him while he's killing barbarians, protecting Rome, right? We want to go. This is an extraordinary chance to go into the guy's mind. We've read diary narrations before on Jimmy's website, and sometimes it's fiction, but in this case, these are the thoughts of one of the major emperors of Rome. And it's truly a gift he's giving us by just this one. If that's all he left us, it'd be like saying, wow. But he left us 12 of these meditations. Number 5, the reason which governs knows what its own disposition is and what it does and on what material it works. He's a big believer in reason, the ruling principle. That's reason. Number 6, the best way of avenging thyself is not to become like the wrongdoer. Isn't that an interesting? The best way to avenge yourself is do not become like the wrongdoer. So even though later and throughout here he's saying there's no such thing as a guy who can do wrong without wronging himself, which is true. In this case, the best way to avenge yourself is not to become like the wrongdoer. Confucius said, if you're going to go bent down on revenge, dig 2 graves, right? One for yourself and one for the other guy. Number 7, take pleasure in one thing and rest in it, in passing from one social act to another social act, thinking of God. Enjoy the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, take pleasure in one thing and rest in it, in passing from one social act to another social act, thinking of God. Well, Jimmy, I thought in previous meditations he said gods, Zeus, plural, right? What's this one God here with a capital G? Well, that's George's interpretation, right, of the Greek that he's writing, and in this case, God. Could be Zeus, probably is Zeus. Number 8. But the point of that number 7 is just to enjoy what you're doing. Take pleasure in one thing. That's hard to do when you got a lot of strife in your life and stress, isn't it? But Marcus would say, take pleasure in the stress. The ruling principle, reason, is that which rouses and turns itself. And while it makes itself such as it is, and such as it wills to be, it, reason, also makes everything which happens appear to itself to be such as it wills. Talk about a tongue tire, huh? Say that 5 times so fast. The ruling principle in which rouses and turns itself, and while it makes itself such as it is, and such as it wills it to be, it also makes everything which happens appear to itself to be such as it wills. What the hell does he mean? Let's think about this. The ruling principle, which is reason, is that which rouses and turns itself. It awakens. You start thinking. And while it makes itself such as it is, and while it's thinking, and such as it wills to be, turning over his thoughts, your thoughts, it, reason, also makes everything which happens appear to itself to be such as it wills. In other words, we interpret things according to the way we perceive them. We've talked about this in many, many, many different readings, not just these, about perception and reality, right? He's saying here, whatever you're thinking about, you're bending what you're thinking about according to your reason. And that's what people do. They bend things. And that's why you should try to look at things from number 7, take pleasure in one thing. Try to look at things for what they are, not what you think they should be. Number 9. In conformity to the nature of the universe, every single thing is accomplished. Think about what he just said and wrote. In conformity to the nature of the universe, every single thing is accomplished. So it's the nature of the universe. In other words, everything that happens for a reason. For certainly it is not in conformity to any other nature that each thing is accomplished, either a nature which is externally comprehends this or a nature which is comprehended within this nature, or a nature external and independent of this. In other words, everything happens for a reason. Not because of some outside force, it's part of nature, which basically what he's saying is death and life. Pardon me. Number 10. The universe is either a confusion and a mutual involution of things and a dispersion, or it's unity, order, and providence. So it's either this confusion or that. Not confusion, but unity. If then it is the former, if it's confusion, why do I desire to tarry in a fortuitous combination of things and such a disorder? So if it is confusion, well, what the hell am I trying to do stuff for? And why do I care about anything else than how I shall at last become earth? And why am I disturbed? For the dispersion of my elements will happen whatever I do. So in other words, see a little note here on the bottom. He's this reasoning with himself. So if the universe is confusion, what the hell am I trying to do anything for, right? But if the other supposition is true, if the universe is what? If it's a combination of things, right? If it's order, providence, unity, if it's that, I venerate and I am firm and I trust in him who governs. Aha. So either chaos or order, right? And we can talk about that some other time, about the orderliness of chaos. But you see, what's interesting about Marcus so long ago when he's talking to himself like this and writing down these meditations, he's trying to figure things out logically, right? So if the universe is confusion, right? Well, what am I doing? Why should I even worry about anything? But if it is not confusion, if it's unity, order, then I am firm and I trust in him who governs. Okay? So which one do you believe? Do you believe the universe is just chaos and confusion? Or do you believe there's an order to the universe? Well, Jimmy, I don't know if we have the time to discuss that. We don't. But this is something you should think about. And I can guarantee you most people don't. And that's one of the problems, isn't it? Because if you're acting like the world is confusion and it's really not, if there's really an order to things, boy, are you screwed. On the other hand, if you believe there's an order to things and it's really all confusion, you're screwed too, right? Because you order your life and it's really not. So it's important to figure out which is the truth. I think you can tell which Marcus believes to be true. I think you can do. Number 11. When thou hast been compelled by circumstances to be disturbed in a manner, quickly return to thyself. And do not continue out of tune longer than the compulsion lasts, for thou wilt have more mastery over the harmony by continually recurring to it. Think about this. That's another arrow from Jimmy. So when you're when you're disturbed, when something disturbs you, return to thyself. Go back to yourself. Settle down, ladies and gentlemen. Do not continue out of tune longer than the compulsion lasts. Pull yourself together. You've heard that saying? Get it together. Get it together. I used to be told that a lot. Get it together, for Christ's sake, Jimmy. Get it together. Right? Because then you'll have more mastery over the harmony by continually referring to it. Number 12, if thou hadst a stepmother and a mother at the same time, thou wouldst be dutiful to thy stepmother, but still thou wouldst constantly return to thy mother. So let the court and philosophy now be to thee stepmother and mother. The court is stepmother, and mother is philosophy. Return to philosophy frequently, and repose in her, through whom what thou meets with in the court appears to thee tolerable, and thou appearest tolerable to the court. So the court is one thing, and thoughtfulness and philosophy is another thing. And he's saying it's better to be in philosophy. The court is just the court. It's trappings. It's superficial. Number 13. When we have meat before us and such edibles, we receive the impression that this is the dead body of a fish, and that this is the dead body of a bird or of a pig. And again, that this flanorine is only a little grape juice wine, and that this purple robe some sheep's wool dyed with the blood of a shellfish. And such then are these impressions, and they reach the things themselves, and they penetrate them. And so we see what kind of things that they are. Just in the same way that we ought to act all through life. And where there are things which appear most worthy of our approbation, approval, we ought to lay them bare and look at their worthlessness and strip them of all the words by which they are exalted. For our outward show is a wonderful perverter of the reason. And when thou art most sure that thou art employed about things worth thy pains, it is then that it cheats thee most. Consider then what Crates says of Exantides himself. Outward show is a wonderful perverter of reason. So if we go back and we just look at what he was saying here, that when you're eating food, just think about it, it's the body of a fish, dead body of a fish, the dead body of a bird. Wine is a little grape juice. The clothes you wear are dyed with the blood of a shellfish, etc. They create these impressions, right? So when you look at things, you should always look at things like this the best way, right? Look at the worthlessness and strip them of all the words. When you think you've found something worthy, really, oh, look at this, is beautiful. Strip it down by the words which they're exalted. An outward show is a wonderful perverter of your reason. I knew a furniture guy who was the epitome of he loved furniture. It was he had a weakness. He loved it. He used to go to England. Antique furniture was his calling. He was a master. He knew everything about how they make antique furniture, how they make wood look like an antique piece of furniture. He knew everything about it. And when he just loved it. You know, and when I was talking to him, I was thinking, well, it's just furniture. No, Jimmy, no. It's not just furniture. Not. Ooh, it's art. It's beautiful. Except, you know, to me, it perverted his reason. In fact, he couldn't help himself and he went out of business. He couldn't control himself. He just couldn't control himself. So what he's saying here is that to think about the things that exalt you and bring them down to their essence. That just the thing. I knew a guy who had a Bentley and he loved his Bentley. It's just a car. No, Jimmy, you're wrong. No, I love this Bentley. I didn't even know what a Bentley was at that time. 14. Most of the things which the multitude admire are referred to objects of the most general kind, those which are held together by cohesion or natural organization, like stones, wood, fig trees, vines, and olives. But those which are admired by men, who are a little more reasonable, are referred to the things which are held together by a living principle, like a flock or a herd. Those which are admired by men who are still more instructed. So he's going through, the basic intellectual capacities of people. those which are admired by men who are still more instructed are the things which are held together by a rational soul. Not, however, a universal soul, but rational. So far as it is the soul skilled in some art, or expert in some other way, or simply rational so far as it possesses a number of slaves. So he's saying here, baseness, you see things as you grow in experience, right? But he who values a rational soul, a soul universal and fitted for political life, regards nothing else except this. And above all things, he keeps his soul in a condition and in an activity conformable to reason and social life. And he cooperates to this end with those who are of the same kind of himself. You should read this passage again. You can put me on pause or come back to it, because in here, Marcus is trying to tell you what the good life is really about. It's not about objects. It's not about things and possessions. It's not even about how many slaves you have or anything like that, but it's something different. It's something that has to do with reason. Great thoughts. What is freedom? Right? What is freedom? What 2 and 2 are 4? You can think about that and contemplate that for a long time. That's a beautiful mathematical formula, isn't it? Number 15. Some things are hurrying into existence, and others are hurrying out of it. And of that which is coming into existence, part is already extinguished. This is that whole river is moving thing, right? Motions and changes are continually renewing the world, just as the uninterrupted course of time is always renewing the infinite duration of ages. This guy is a deep, deep thinker. Think about what he's telling you. All things are flowing, right? In this flowing stream, then, on which there is no abiding, in other words, you can't just stop time. What is there of the things which hurry by, on which a man would set a high price? So, since you can't stand still, nothing stands still, what are these things where you're going to put a high price tag on it? It would be just as if a man should fall in love with one of the sparrows which fly by, but it has already passed out of sight. There's a great story by Hermann Hesse called Damien. Remind me to tell you about that. Something of this kind is the very life of every man, like the exhilaration of the blood and the respiration of the air. For such as it is to have once drawn in the air and to have given it back, breathing, which we do every moment, just the same is it, with the whole respiratory power, which thou didst receive at thy birth, yesterday and the day before, and given it back to the elemental form which did first draw it when you die. Number 15 of this meditation, number 6, is probably one of the most profound thoughts throughout all these meditations. And I want you to think about this seriously, right? So what do you value? Here, I'm going to write that down here. What do you value? What do you value? What do you value? Because he's asking you that, what do you put a high price on when everything, he says, you might as well look at a sparrow and fall in love with a sparrow. The book Damien by Hermann Hesse has a kid, there's a little parable in there, and the lady's telling this to Damien that there was once upon a time there was a boy who sat on a mountain top and he fell in love with a star. And every night he would go on the mountaintop and he would sit on the mountaintop and just look at this star. He just told himself how much he loved it. It was beautiful, but it was so far away. He did this for a long time. Every night, go star. Even on cloudy days, he would sit there and imagine the star where it was. Because as you know, stars far away from us don't move that much. They move, but not often. And he loved this star. And one night he said, if I could just touch that star, I would be the happiest guy in the world. And because I really, really loved that star. So he jumped off the cliff and started reaching for the star. And he realized he had jumped off the cliff and he fell down and died. It's a sad story. But the moral of the story, what the lady was telling Damien, is that love has to entreat. You can't force love. Love must not entreat. You can't do that. It's going to come of its natural course. And in a way, that's what he's saying here. If you value things, the moment you value something, the more it devalues itself. This is a tough concept. There's no question about it. This is a tough concept. It's like, I'll give you another analogy if you're familiar with baseball. If you know anything about baseball, and if you've ever played baseball, if you ever pitched a baseball, and you're supposed to pitch it in the strike zone, you quickly learn one thing very quickly. Well, first of all, you learn if you either got it or you don't. But put that aside for a moment. You learn that the harder you try to throw that ball into the strike zone, the more likely you are to bean the batter, to hit the guy. Because the harder you try, the worse it is. You have to be natural. You can't even think about it. That's what's going on in this number 15. Think about it. Very important. 16. Neither is transpiration, the process by which plants give off water vapor through their stoma in their leaves. You've seen little droplets of water on leaves? As in plants, a thing to be valued, nor respiration as in domesticated animals and wild beasts, nor the receiving of impressions by the appearances of things, nor being moved by desires like puppets on strings, nor assembly in herds, nor being nourished by food, for this is just like the act of separating and parting with the useless part of our food. What then is worth being valued? He questioned, asked it over here. What is worth being valued? To be received with clapping hands? No. Neither must we value the clapping of tongues. Oh, you're great, you're terrific, oh, you're a beautiful person. For the praise which comes from the many is a clapping of tongue. Don't forget, he's the emperor, right? And when you got a position of power like the emperor or a boss, what do people do? They suck up to you, don't they? Oh, your majesty, you're beautiful. Oh, you're good. The Emperor's New Clothes is a great example. We should read that. That's a great fairy tale. Suppose then that thou hast given up this worthless thing called fame. What remains that is worth valuing? This, in my opinion, to move thyself and to restrain thyself in conformity to thy proper constitution, to which end both all employments and arts lead. Be yourself. For every art aims at this, that the thing which has been made should be adapted to the work for which it has been made. And both the vine planter who looks after the vine and the horse breaker and he who trains the dog seek this end. In other words, they seek to accomplish the task at hand. But the education and the teaching of youth aim at something. In this, then, is the value of the education and the teaching. And if this is well, thou wilt not seek anything else. In other words, just accomplishing your task, doing your duty. Wilt thou not cease to value many other things too? Well, then thou wilt be neither free nor sufficient for your own happiness, nor without passion. For of necessity you must be envious, jealous, and suspicious of all those who can take away those things. So if you value material things, You're going to be jealous. See? You see what he's saying here? You got to dissolve yourself of wanting anything and plot against those who have that which is valued by thee. Well, I got to get that. Of necessity, a man must be altogether in a state of perturbation who wants any of these things, and besides, he must often find fault with the gods. So if you want all this stuff, power, fame, blah, 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 you're even going to get ticked off at the gods. But to reverence and honor your own mind will make thee content with thyself and in harmony with society and in agreement with the gods, that is, praising all that they give and have ordered. Ladies and gentlemen, beautifully written and translated by George Long, isn't it? Quit worrying about outside crap. 17. You see here, I took to writing words now what these thoughts, meditations are about. I don't know why I didn't do that from the beginning, but that's okay. Above, below, all around are movements of the elements. But the motion of virtue is in none of these. It is something more divine. What is it? Virtue. And advancing by a way hardly observed, virtue, goes happily on its road. What is virtue? It's one of those concepts that you can't touch it, feel it, smell it. It's like freedom, right? What is freedom? What is virtue? How strangely men act. Number 18. They will not praise those who are living at the same time and living with themselves, but to be themselves praised by posterity, by those whom they have never seen or ever will see. This they set much value on. But this is very much the same as if thou should be grieved because that those who have lived before thee did not praise thee. That's absurdity, right? He's talking about praise. Why are you worried about praise? Why does he worry about so much about praise and fame? Well, he's the emperor, don't forget. Number 19. If a thing is difficult to be accomplished by thyself, do not think that it is impossible for man. But if anything is possible for man and conformable to his nature, think that this can be attained by thyself too. So if you can't accomplish something, don't think no one can do it. But if anything can be possible for man and conformable to his nature, then you can do it too. Right? But you can't do everything. You can't jump 19 feet, can you? Number 20. In the gymnastic exercises, suppose that a man has torn thee with his nails, and by dashing against thy head has inflicted a wound. So he's saying you're exercising, whatever you're doing, some guy scratches you. Well, we neither show any signs of vexation, nor are we offended, nor do we suspect him afterwards as a treacherous fellow. And yet, we are on our guard against him, not, however, as an enemy, nor yet with suspicion, but we quietly get out of his way. Something like this, let thy behavior be in all the other parts of life. Let us overlook many things in those who are like antagonists in the gym. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So you get involved in a scuffle, something happens. We neither show sign, you're not vexed, you're not angry, you're not offended, and you don't suspect them afterwards as being treacherous, but yet you're on guard against him. Not like an enemy, but you get out of his way. Isn't that interesting? So he's saying you should do this to everything. Everything, not just in the gym. So I put caution there, just cautious, right? For it is in our power, as I said, to get out of the way and to have no suspicion or hatred. He's trying to say, walk that middle road, like Aristotle said, right? Stay in the middle, the golden mean. Don't go too much to the right, to the left. Stay right in the middle. Number 21. If any man is able to convince me and show me that I do not think or act right, I will gladly change. For I seek the truth, by which no man was ever injured. But he is injured who abides in error and ignorance. You should write this number 21 down and keep it. You should sleep with it. You should write it down on a piece of paper, put it under your pillow, and sleep with it. I'm not kidding. If any man can convince you, right, that you don't think or act right, you'll change, right? Because you seek the truth, which, according to Marcus Aurelius, no man was ever injured by the truth. Do you believe that? Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth. Can you handle the truth? But he is injured who abides in error and ignorance. So don't abide in error and ignorance, right? Well, Jimmy, isn't the truth relative? Well, kind of, sort of, would have, maybe, but not really. Truth is the truth, right? What is the truth? I'm willing, I listen to everybody. I was telling that to somebody the other day. Someone was talking, and I said, I'll listen to anybody. Anybody who talks to me, I'm going to listen to them. Number 22, I do my duty. Other things trouble me not, for they are either things without life, or things without reason, or things that have rambled and know not the way. Isn't that good? Isn't it? Just stick your nose to the grindstone. Do your duty. Other things trouble me not. Who cares what the Joneses have? Who cares? Number 23. What is your duty? Stop a moment. What is that? What does he mean by that? His duty was the emperor. He got to defend, the empire, right? Fighting the barbarians. But what is your duty? What is your duty? Do you have a duty? Or you just float through life? What is your duty? What is your duty? Number 23. As to the animals which have no reason, and generally all things and objects, do thou, since thou hast reason, and they have none, make use of them with a generous and liberal spirit. But toward human beings, as they do have reason, behave in a social spirit. And on all occasions call on the gods, and do not perplex yourself about the length of time in which thou shalt do this, for even 3 hours are sufficient. Have respect for other people, right? Alexander of Macedonia and his groom by death were brought to the same state, for either they were received among the same seminal principles of the universe, or they were alike dispersed among the atoms. This is a common theme in Marcus Aurelius. They're either dispersed, right, or they're received among the same principles of the universe. This is death. Number 25. Consider how many things in the same and indivisible time take place in each of us. Things, there's the dash, things which concern the body, things which concern more things, or rather all things which come into existence in that which is the one and all, which we call cosmos, exist in it at the same time. This is a profound thought. He's talking about existence, right? Consider how many things happen in the visible at the same time in each of us. And so will you wonder if many other things, it's the cosmos, you're living in your existence. You are one with the universe. And maybe you don't believe that, but this is a guy on the front lines thinking. Do you think he includes the barbarians in this thought? I think he does. Number 26. If any man should propose to thee the question, how the name Antonius is written, That's his name, right? Wouldst thou, with a straining of thy voice, utter each letter? A. If someone asked them how the name is written, would you strain with each letter? A. What then if they grow angry? Wilt thou grow angry too? Wilt thou not go on with the composure and the number every letter? Just so then, in this life, also remember that every duty is made up of certain parts. Now, I just asked you what your duty is. Think about it. Pay attention. These it is thy duty to observe. These, what's these? That's a pronoun meaning what? All the parts of duty. And without being disturbed or showing anger toward those who are angry with thee, to go on thy way and finish that which is set before thee. Don't rush. Taking a sip of coffee. Don't rush. Next time somebody asks you, how's your name written, Jimmy? J. See, now you're going to turn me off, right? Well, I'm not going to get mad. That's what he's saying here. It's with your duty. Your duty is made up of certain parts. If you're doing your duty and someone's saying, can't you hurry it up? Just do your duty. I wonder here, I wonder, what am I doing? Hold on. Okay. Number 27, how cruel it is not to allow men to strive after the things which appear to them to be suitable to their nature and profitable. And yet, in a manner that thou dost not allow them to do this when thou art vexed, when you're mad, because they do wrong, for they are certainly moved toward things because they suppose them to be suitable to their nature and profitable to them. But it is not so. Teach them then, and show them without being angry. Can you do that? Can you do that? Without being angry. Death is a cessation of the impressions through the senses. Isn't that the case? And of the pulling of the strings which move the appetites, and of the discursive movements of the thoughts, and of the service to the flesh. That's what death is. Number 29. It is a shame for the soul to be first to give way in this life when thy body does not give way. It's a shame for the soul to be the first to give way in this life when your body doesn't give way. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Or is it the other way around? Is it the other way around? Well, my body gave away, Jimmy, but I can still think. Is that what he's talking about here? Your soul to be the first to give way. You lose your way. You lose your virtue. You lose your duty. You lose your sense, but you're still alive. That's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about. That's got to be painful. Although some people lose it and they don't even know it, right? Number 30, take care that thou art not made into a Caesar. Remember, he's the emperor. He's talking to himself, that you're not made into a Caesar, that thou art not dyed with this dye. For such things happen. Pardon me. Keep thyself then simple, good, pure, serious, free from affectation, pretending, a friend of justice, a worshiper of the gods, kind, affectionate, strenuous in all proper acts. This is probably some of the best advice you can get, right? Right there. Keep yourself simple, good, pure, serious. You don't want to get pompous. Strive to continue to be such as philosophy wished to make thee. Reverence the gods and help men. He's talking about power, and don't forget he's the emperor, so he has ultimate power. Short is life. This is only one fruit of this terrene life, right? Terrene life, a pious disposition and social acts. Do everything as a disciple of Antonius, and remember his constancy in every act, which was conformable, right? Which was to reason, and his evenness in all things, and his piety, and the serenity of his countenance, and his sweetness, and his disregard of empty fame, and his efforts to understand things, and how he would never let anything pass without having first most carefully examined it and clearly understood it, and how he bore with those who blamed him unjustly without blaming them in return. How he did, this is like his epitaph, isn't it? It's like his epitaph. This is what he wants people to remember him by. He put up with, people unjustly blaming him, and how he listened not to calumnies, and how exact an examiner of manners and actions he was, and not given to reproach people, nor timid, nor suspicious, nor a sophist. That's a good word. And it's a guy who talks without saying anything, sophistry. And with how little he was satisfied, such as longing, bed, dress, food, servants, and how laboriously impatient, and how he is able on account of his sparing diet to hold cut to the evening, not even requiring to relieve himself by any evacuations except at the usual hour. It's a little more than we want to know about him, right? He didn't have to get up at night to go pee. And his firmness and uniformity in his friendships, and how he tolerated freedom of speech in those who opposed his opinions. I don't know why I didn't mark that. Isn't that a great quality? Isn't that a great quality to have? Tolerated freedom of speech in those who opposed his opinion. And the pleasure that he had when any man showed him anything better, and how religious he was, without superstition. Imitate all this, that thou mayst have a good conscience when the last hour comes, as he had. I'm going to tell you right now, this is probably his epitaph. This is how he wanted people to see him. Why don't you write your epitaph? How do you want people to see you? Can you say any of this about yourself? Wouldn't that be a great assignment? I think I'm going to make that an assignment. I don't give out homework, but I'm really tempted to give out homework. Write your own epitaph. Write your own what you want people to remember you by. He was a jolly old soul. Oh, that's Santa, right? Jolly old soul was he. What's your epitaph? What do you want people to remember you by? Are you a good listener? Oh, he's always angry. Jesus, I don't know what the hell got into it. He's always pissed off. Right? What do people think of you? Have you asked people that? Well, first of all, is anybody going to tell you what they really believe about you? Are they? Are they going to really tell you? I don't think so. That's why you got to tell yourself. You got to tell yourself about yourself, because people are not going to tell you about yourself. Some of them will, maybe, and then you're going to punch them. No, I'm kidding. Number 31. Return to thy sober senses and call thyself back. And when thou hast roused thyself from sleep and hast perceived that they were only dreams which troubled thee, now, in thy waking hours, look at these as thou didst look at those. Reality. Return to your senses. Remember these little brackets? That's George. That's George stepping in, trying to interpret for us what Marcus is saying. Right? Maybe they'll help you. Maybe they won't. You can read it again at your convenience. I don't think you need this. What I just read without it makes a lot of sense. Number 32. I consist of a little body and a soul. Now, to this little body all things are indifferent, for it is not able to perceive differences. But to the understanding, those things only are indifferent which are not the works of its own activity. Those things are indifferent which are not the works of the body's own activity. But whatever things are the works of its own activity, all of these are in its power, the pronoun, the body's power. And of these, however, only those which are done with reference to the present. For as to the future and the past activities of the mind, even these are for the present indifferent. Right? What's ever in front of you, you're only in the present. You have to have an understanding of what things really are. Number 33. Neither the labor which the hand does, nor that of the foot, is contrary to nature. So long as the foot does the foot's work, and the hand's work. So then neither to a man as a man is his labor contrary to nature, so long as it does the things of a man. But if the labor is not contrary to his nature, neither is it an evil to him. But if the labor is not contrary to his nature, neither is it an evil to him. So do things like a man does. Now, I'm speaking of man, woman, right? In those days, women, were different. They weren't different, but they were thought of as different. But this, you can substitute a woman in here, right? But if the labor, whatever you're doing, is not contrary to your nature, to the man's nature, it's not evil. Well, what's contrary to man's nature? To a person's nature. What do you think is contrary to your nature? Have you thought about that? Or is everything part of your nature? I don't know. Have you thought about that? Number 34. How many pleasures have been enjoyed by robbers, patricides, tyrants? That's it. That's the meditation. How many pleasures have been enjoyed by robbers, patricides, and tyrants? Is he suggesting that if you enjoy pleasure, that you're a robber, a tyrant, or a patricide? I don't know. 35. Dost thou not see how the handicraftsmen accommodate themselves up to a certain point to those who are not skilled in their craft? Nevertheless, they cling to the reason of their art, and they do not endure to depart from it. Is it not strange if the architect and the physician shall have more respect to the reason of their own arts than man to his own reason, which is common to him and the gods? In other words, these specialists are specialists, and they become enamored and involved in their specialty, but they don't really realize that everyone has this reason. It's just common to all men. All men can think. Although some men we can understand, we can say, oh, why did you do that? Well, I wasn't thinking, Your Honor. I don't know if that's true. Number 36, Asia, Europe are corners of the universe. All the sea a drop in the universe. Athos a little clod in the universe. All the present time is a point in eternity. Think about what he's writing. All things are little, changeable, perishable. All things come from thence, from that universal ruling power, either directly proceeding or by way of sequence. And accordingly, the lion's gaping jaws, and that which is poisonous, and every harmful thing, like a thorn, as mud, are after products of the grand and beautiful. Do not imagine that they are of another kind from that which thou dost venerate, but just form an opinion of the source of all. But form just an opinion, a just opinion of the source of all. It's all coming from the same place. Number 37. He who has seen present things has seen everything, all, both everything which has taken place from all eternity and everything which will be for time without end. For all things are of one kin and of one form. There's that past, present, and future again, living in the present, right? Don't look at the past. Don't look in the future. Here, the here and now. Number 38, frequently consider the connection of all things in the universe and their relation to one another. What a great thought. Think about, frequently consider, not just think about and then go on to the next thing. Consider the connection of all things in the universe and their relation to one another. For in a manner, all things are implicated with one another. And all in this way are friendly to one another. For one thing comes in order after another, and this by virtue of the active movement and mutual conscription and the unity of the substance. We are all together. Taking another sip of coffee. Pardon me. Adapt thyself to the things with which thy lot has been cast. And the men among whom thou hast received thy portion, love them, but do it truly. He puts sincerely, truly, sincerely. Adapt yourself to the things which your lot has been cast. Don't bemoan your fate, right? Can you be happy flipping burgers at some greasy spoon? Can you? I can. You should be able to be content and happy where your lot has been cast doing anything. I used to paint boilers. I painted when I started working when I was very young for the school. I painted the school. I fell off the scaffold. $1 an hour. I was making $1 an hour. I was really happy until I fell off the scaffold. Then I had to stop. $1 an hour, $40 a week. Great. Cheap labor they got from me, right? The priests. But that's okay. My lot. I was happy. I made money. Number 40. Every instrument, tool, vessel, if it does that for which it has been made, is well. And yet, he who made it isn't there. But in the things which are held together by nature, there is within and there abides in them the power which made them. Wherefore, the more is it fit to reverence this power and to think that if thou dost live and act according to its will, everything in thee will in conformity to intelligence. And thus also, in the universe, the things which belong to it are in conformity to intelligence. Isn't that pretty? 41. Whatever of the things which are not within thy power thou shalt suppose to be good for thee or evil, it must of necessity be that. If such a bad thing befall thee, or the loss of such a good thing, thou wilt not blame the gods or hate men too, those who are the cause of the misfortune or the loss, or those who are suspected of being likely to be the cause. And indeed, we do not much injustice because we make a difference between these things. But if we judge only those things which are in our power to be good or bad, there remains no reason either for finding fault with God or standing in a hostile attitude to man. You know, a lot of times I read these and I try to read them carefully, right? But you can stop and you can go back and you can reread them with me until you get the point. That's the point of reading with Jimmy, especially these deep meditations. Any book I read on this website, any book, any novel, any short story, any diary like this with meditations, one reading ain't going to cut it, ladies and gentlemen. One reading ain't going to cut it. You got to go back and reread it again and think about this. You can stop this tape at any time, right? Number 42. We are all working together to one end, some with knowledge and design, and others without knowing what they do. Isn't that the truth? As men also, when they are asleep, of whom it is Heraclitus, I think, who says that they are laborers and cooperators in the things which take place in the universe. But men cooperate after different fashions. And even those cooperate abundantly who find fault with what happens, and those who try to oppose it and to hinder it. What's it? Right? What is it? Walking the one end. For the universe had need even of such men as these, even the guys who oppose it, right? The jerks in life. The jerks in life. It remains then for thee, you, to understand among what kind of workmen thou placest thyself. Isn't that an interesting thought? For he who rules all things will certainly make a right use of thee, and he will receive thee among some part of the cooperators and of those whose laborers conduce to one end. But be not thou such a part as the mean and ridiculous verse in a play which Chrysippus speaks of, and that's a Plutarch reference. Whatever that is, I'm not going to look it up for you. These are not easy, are they? 43. But you remember, these are not meant to be read one after another like we're doing it. They're meant to be read one at a time, to stop, think about, reread it, stop, think about, right? That's how you're going to get the most out of Marcus Aurelius. Number 43. Does the sun undertake to do the work of the rain? Or Aesculapius the work of the fruit bearer? And how is it with respect to each of the stars? Are they not different? And vet they work, and yet, they work together at the same end? Number 44. If the gods have determined about me and about the things which must happen to me, they have determined well, for it is not easy even to imagine a deity without forethought. And as to doing me harm, why would they have any desire toward that? For what advantage would result to them, the gods, from this, or to the whole universe, which is the special object of their providence? But if they have not determined about me individually, they have certainly determined about the whole at least, and the things which happen by way of sequence to the general arrangement. I ought to accept with pleasure and to be content with them. This is a determinism. That's what he's talking about here. If God's determined, what's going to happen to him, why would they wish him evil? Why would they? What deity would do that? What deity would do that? As to do him harm. That's that Stoicism coming out through him, isn't it? I think so. But if they determine about nothing, in other words, let's say there is no such thing as determinism, the gods don't do it, which it is wicked to believe, or if we do believe it, let us neither sacrifice nor pray nor swear by them, nor do anything else, which we do as if the gods were present and lived with us. In other words, don't tick off the gods. But if, however, the gods determine about none of these things which concern us, I am able to determine about myself, and I can inquire about that which is useful. And that is useful to every man, which is conformable to his own constitution and nature. Okay, so if the gods ain't determining it, I'm doing the determining. But my nature is rational and social, and my city and country, so far as I am Antonius, is Rome. But so far as I am a man, it is the world. The things then which are useful to these cities are alone useful to me. You see? He's trying to think about himself as the emperor, is everything determined? And if it's not determined, then I determine it. But his nature is rational and social, and his city is country is Rome, and he's a man, but he's also a man, the world. It's not just Rome. 45. Whatever happens to every man, this is for the interest of the universal. This might be sufficient. This might be sufficient. But further, thou wilt observe this also as a general truth, that if thou observe that whatever is profitable to any man is profitable also to other men. So whatever happens to man, right, happens universal. Whatever is profitable to any man is profitable to other men. But let the word profitable be taken here in the common sense as set of things of the middle kind. This is George, right? Brackets are George. Neither good nor bad. The middle road, 46. As it happens to thee in the amphitheater and in such places, that the continual sight of the same things and the uniformity make the spectacle wearisome. So it is in the whole of life. Just like you're watching some shows, oh my God, how boring, right? For all things above, below are the same and from the same. Well, how long then? How long are you gonna be bored? 47. Think continually that all kinds of men and all the kinds of pursuits and all the nations are dead, so that thy thoughts come down to even Philistion and Phobius and Origen. Those are people. So that your thoughts come down to just pick 3 people in your life. Now turn thy thoughts to the other kinds, to that place that we must remove, and where there are so many great orators, think of another city or another country, and so many noble philosophers, Heraclitus, Pythagoras, Socrates, so many heroes of former days. Go back into the past and think of George Washington or Jefferson, and so many generals after them, and tyrants, Benedict Arnold. Besides these, Exodus, Hippocrates, Archimedes, and other men of acute natural talent, great minds, lovers of labor, versatile, confident, mockers even in the perishable and ephemeral life of man, as Memphius, and such as are like of them. So he's naming people, right? As to all of these, consider that they have long been in the dust. What harm then is this to them? What harm is this? What's this? Whatever you're doing. And what to those whose names are altogether unknown? One thing here is worth a great deal. To pass thy life in truth and justice with a benevolent disposition, even to liars and unjust men. So as you're thinking about all of these people, right? One thing is worth a great deal. Pass your life in truth and justice with benevolent disposition to liars and even liars and unjust men. This is very important. Number 48, when thou wishest to delight thyself, think of the virtues of those who live with thee. For instance, the activity of one and the modesty of another and the liberality of a third and some other good quality of the fourth. Think of the people around you. For nothing delights so much as the example. Remember, in these days, there's no television, there's no radio, there's nothing, there's just people, right? Nothing delights so much as the examples of virtues when they are exhibited in the morals of those who live with us and present themselves in abundance. Birds of a feather flock together, right? Those, let me go back one second, in abundance. I was right, see? As far as it is possible. Wherefore we must keep them before us, right? Number 49. Thou art not dissatisfied, I suppose, because thou weighest only so many litra and not 300. So you're not dissatisfied. Be not dissatisfied then that thou must live only so many years and not any more. For as thou art satisfied with the amount of substance which has been assigned to thee, so be content with the time. I don't know about you, but that's a profound thought, right? Right? Jesus, I wish I could lose some weight. Well, then lose it. Jesus, I wish I could gain some weight. Well, then gain it. Jesus, I wish I could live forever. Well, you can't. Number 50. Sorry. Let us try to persuade them, but act even against their will when the principles of justice lead the way. If, however, any man by using force stands in your way, betake thyself to contentment and tranquility, and at the same time employ the hindrance towards the exercise of some other virtue. And remember that thy attempt was with a reservation, that thou didst not desire to do impossibility. What then didst thou desire? Some such effort as this? But thou attainest he's arguing with himself. Some such effort as this? But thou attainest thy object if these things to which thou art moved are accomplished. So here's a little discussion of force. When to use it, when not to use it. 51. He who loves fame considers another man's activity to be his own good. And when he who loves pleasure, his own sensations. But he who has an understanding considers his own acts to be his own good. Think this, we got to reread this. He who loves fame considers another man's activity to be his own good. You love fame, right? Another man's activity to be his own good. You're praising me because I love fame. And he who loves pleasure, his own sensations. He takes pleasure in his own sensations. But he who has an understanding, considers his own acts to be his own good. Think about that. 52. It is in our power to have no opinion. The word opinion appears throughout these meditations. It is in our power to have no opinion about a thing, and not to be disturbed in our soul. For things themselves have no natural power to form our judgments. That's another thing you should write on a piece of paper and sleep with. It is in our power to have no opinion about a thing. You understand that? And it's in your power. You don't have to have an opinion. Friedrich Nietzsche said, the biggest insult you can have and give anybody. What do you think the biggest insult is? To swear at them? You motherfucker. What's the biggest insult? You coward, you liar. No. Sorry. You know what the biggest insult is? And you can try this for yourself. The biggest insult is indifference. I don't care. What do you mean you don't care? I just don't care. You can drive people, you can enrage someone by just being indifferent. That's the biggest insult. Look what Marcus is saying here. It is in our power to have no opinion about a thing. That's what he's saying. It's in your power not to give a shit. I just don't care. And not to be disturbed in our own soul. By what? By anything. Things themselves have no natural power to form our judgments. What do you mean, Jimmy? What do you mean? Evil. That's not right. Well, it's not, I didn't say it's right or wrong. I'm just saying your reaction, you have the power. No opinion. You can have no opinion. Besides, we don't want to talk about good and evil because I don't know what that is. But that rock I'm looking at right now, I'm indifferent. 53. Accustom thyself to attend carefully to what is said by another, and as much as it is possible, be in the speaker's mind. There's another thing to write down. Listen. Don't talk. A great man once told me, you never learn anything by talking. And boy, was he right. It was the great Don Tickle. What a guy. Best sales guy I ever met in my life. You never learn anything by talking. Ever. Ever. So listen. 54. That which is not good for the swarm, neither is it good for the bee. Isn't that interesting? Number 55. If sailors abused the helmsman or the sick the doctor, would they listen to anybody else? Or how would the helmsman secure the safety of those in the ship, or the doctor the health of those whom he attends? That's obedience. Be obedient. Well, I can't obey anybody, Jimmy. That's okay. Obey yourself. Obedience is a whole topic for another day. 56. How many together with whom I came into the world are already gone out of it? Have you written that down? Have you made a list of the people you come into contact with in the world since you were born, since you attained the age of reason, and are now gone out of it? Right? The longer you live, the longer that list grows. It's a horrible thought, or is it? 57. To the jaundiced, honey tastes bitter, and to those bitten by mad dogs, water causes fear. And to little children, the ball is a fine thing. Why then am I angry? Do you think that a false opinion has less power than the bile in a jaundice or a poison in him who is bitten by a mad dog? Do you think that a false opinion has less power than the bile in the jaundice or the poison in him who is bitten by a mad dog? Which is worse? 58. No man will hinder thee from living according to the reason of thy own nature. Nothing will happen to thee contrary to the reason of the universal nature. Very important. 59. What kind of people are those whom men wish to please? And for what objects? And by what kinds of acts? How soon will time cover all things? And how many it has covered already? I'm exhausted. I hope you are. You've been reading with Jimmy. This is Marcus Aurelius. This is meditation number 6. Ladies and gentlemen, we're halfway through. Halfway! Hooray! How about it? Let's celebrate. Have pizza tonight. You can watch more of our ongoing videos on this website. Be sure to visit and read other classic stories as well. And remember, if you do have questions, concerns, opinions, right? Email me, Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. I read every single email you send, ladies and gentlemen. I read them all. I don't respond to all, but I read them all. I don't have time to respond to all. And I'm picking out some of them from my analysis of Marcus Aurelius that actually are quite profound, especially when they come in from more than one person. So email me, Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com, Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Thank you very much. Have a great day, the rest of your day, whatever time it is.